The fuck? Alright. Tales from the fucking pit. I got a lot of them, but one that really came to mind when I was thinking about the subject for this video was from this guy I met in mechanic school. I was thinking of giving him a nickname, maybe the Ukrainian. I don't know, but let's call him Daniel, right? Now, Daniel had a very mysterious past. Like, I still don't know his whole fucking story. He really never spoke about himself too much, right? But from what I pieced together and what he did tell me, holy shit. You know, like, it's insane. So, Daniel was an immigrant from Ukraine. Cool dude. Like, really down-to-earth kind of guy. He had some very, like, dry humor. And if you ever met someone from, like, the Eastern Bloc, they're pretty famous for it. I mean, Germans in general as well, but so are Eastern Europeans, right? And when I met him, I kind of didn't like. I was coming into my own socially, so I didn't really mesh with him too well at first. But we eventually came to understand each other better, and I eventually realized like this guy's actually pretty cool, right? But from what I pieced together about his story, like holy shit. I remember I told him once that I went to New York in 2015. It was a vacation with my family, right? And he told me like, "Oh yeah, New York. Yeah, that's the one of the first places I went when I moved here, right?" And he was a young guy too. He was about 28, 28 maybe. He was definitely older than me. And at the time I was like 21-ish, so about 28. And I asked him, "Oh, New York, you know, what were you doing there on vacation?" Something like that. And he opened up to me. He was like, "No, I was like I didn't have a house." I'm like, "What?" You know what I mean? Like homeless? He's like, he's like, kind of, you know? And I'm like, I know, I don't know. What do you mean kind of homeless? Um, I should have handled it with a bit more tact, honestly. But he said something that you know, he's like, where did you, he changed the subject, which I thought he did, but he didn't. He was like, where did you stay? And I'm like, I stayed in downtown. I stayed in Soho, right? And he's like, do you know that Ukrainian church on X and Y streets? I don't know where. And he's like, oh yeah. I was like, yeah, I walked past that a couple times on my way to the hotel. And he's like, yeah, I was living there. And I'm like, living there? And he's like, yeah, like they let me stay in their attic basically for a couple months. And I'm like, holy shit, you know? And that's the earliest lore I know from this guy is the fact that like what an origin story, right? But I mean, it gets better. Um, you know, he's like, yeah, like I moved here. My parents kind of live here, but I was in like a rebellious era as a teen, but at the same time, I didn't have any money. Um, or like in mid 20s. He was living like this as he was doing his mechanical engineering degree in ODU. So he lived down there for a bit. He knew that area very well. And if you know anything about ODU, you don't want to live there. It's it's pretty bad. Newport News, Virginia, is a pretty seedy area, not that safe. So you know, just think about this, right? Like mysterious dude. I don't know his story at all. I'm kind of piecing it together, but he never really opened up much. Which you know, to each their own. But what he did open up about, I'm like, holy fuck, like that happened to you? You know what I mean? Like that's heavy, man. You know, like a newfound respect. I gained a newfound respect for him at that time. So he went from, and this is why you know it's like tales from the pit, but it's also tales from the pivot. He went from that to probably one of the most wealthiest people I've met. At the time, right after mechanic school, he was definitely one of the most wealthiest people I've met. And I mean, wealth in many different ways. He was such a great guy. Very busy person, always staying busy. But wealth in a monetary sense as well, which, you know, oh shit, that zombie got fucked. Um, which, you know, what most people would consider when you say, oh yeah, this guy was rich, this guy was wealthy, you know, it's beside the point but I want to highlight it because, when you go from broke and homeless and, a bad relationship with your parents to where he is now, it's quite impressive and commendable. So, he went from there, and then I think he finished his bachelor's degree, but, when COVID happened, he really couldn't find that much in terms of work. I think he worked at Swissport for a little bit, um, uh, helping with their airport conveyor. He was helping with the processing side of it, not like at the airport, but from from a design perspective, from what I remember. I'm remembering things from like 5 years ago. Um, and I was like, oh, that's cool and all. But then I asked him like, so what brought you to mechanic school? And because it's like you have a degree, like why the hell are you getting an associate's degree in mechanic school, nevertheless a federal license? And this guy had the vision, right? And I'll never forget this, right? The idea to be a visionary in your own life, to project a goal out there and just assume that it's going to be a given, that it's just going to happen. And at the time, I was like, "What the fuck? This is like magic!" Like this guy said this in with such confidence that I almost feel like a dick for undermining his seriousness when he said this. He said, "The reason why I want to be an aircraft mechanic or get my license is so that way I can work on my own plane." And I'm like, "Work on your own plane?" You know what I mean? Like I said, forgive me, but like that's a lot of money because we're dealing with the numbers here. We know how much plane ownership costs and stuff like that. And he's like, "Yeah, but if you do your own maintenance, it won't be too bad." And he made another promise to me. He said, "Give me a couple years, I'll get it done." And I'm like, "Wow, like that is some confidence, bro." He was also he also put himself on the waiting list for a hangar at that airport before he ever bought a plane. And I was like, "Why are you getting on the waiting list if you don't have a plane?" It's like, "Because that way, when I get a plane, And I'm I was just so bewildered. Like this guy's like projecting himself in the future with such confidence that I was almost inspired to do it myself. I was like, "What the fuck?" Like this is the wave I need to get on. I need to say like, yeah, it's gonna happen. It's a given. I'm gonna have a plane in my hangar by the time I get approved for the waiting list, right? So, the waiting list was 3 years. I check his Snapchat 3 years later after mechanic school, and wouldn't you fucking know it, he's got a plane in the hangar. You know what I mean? Like this guy had the vision. But I one day I asked him like, are you gonna be an aircraft mechanic? And he laughed. He's like, "Fuck no." I'm like, at first I was like, damn, I gotta really consider my career if he's approaching it with such a demeanor. And he's like, "Listen, like you're not gonna make money as a mechanic," which is true. I never did. I did have it as a job for a little bit, but dude, I was being paid 14 an hour. Like that's for the level of risk. I mean, that's not money, dude. You can't live on that. I might as well go work at fucking Chick-fil-A. That was paying 15. Um, so he's like, "Look, you're not gonna make money if you do it. You're smart. You should pivot." And it's like almost everybody in aviation that I've met always told me to get out of aviation. And at some point, I eventually got the hint and did it. Not out of my choice, more so forced out. That's a whole different story. But yeah, he said it with such gusto. Like, "I'm gonna have a plane. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that, and I'm gonna get a job as an engineer." And like the job as an engineer, I believed, but I didn't have the vision or the power of vision or something like that in my own mind to say like, okay, it's possible to be an engineer, but is it really possible to own a plane, have this lifestyle, etc., etc.? And you might think to yourself that this guy was a very extravagant individual. Not at all. I mean, he showed up to school in a Honda Fit, like a 20. I mean, this was 2019, 2024 at the time. He showed up in like a 2010, 2011 Honda Fit. You know what I mean? Like something old, cheap. Yeah, he treated it like a garbage. You know what I mean? It was his beater car. And I mean, he really put me on that wave. Like I was driving a newer car than him, and I didn't have half the guap. And I was like, holy shit! Like, like that is new to me, bro. That is a new mindset. That is a new wave. And I mean, now it really isn't. Now I see the value in it. But yeah, he would pull up in this Honda Fit, and I would, in my mind, back in my mind, I'm like, this guy like makes money. Why not drive something better, But now I'm realizing this guy was saving money to achieve the goals that he wanted to. In the middle of mechanic school, he actually got a job with a major pharmaceutical company at the time, and he became like a head engineer or head facilities engineer or something to that tune, and making that pretty good pharma money. And that pharma company at the time to me was obscure. Like I had no idea what it was. If I were to say what it is, I think you would know. But it was amazing how Daniel achieved what he did, and all it really took for him was the vision. But this dude went from homeless, like literally homeless, like sleeping in a church, to balling out. Now I see his Snapchat. Now I see what he's up to. And I catch up with him sometimes, and he's like, "I'm doing this. I'm doing that. I'm here. I'm there." You know, he's really enjoying it, and I'm loving it. And I got to sing that praise because, like, people tell me it's over. It wasn't over for him. You know, like, please do a self-assessment. Are you currently homeless? Okay. Well, if you are, you can make that pivot just like he did. You might say, "Oh, but you know, he was homeless with a bachelor's degree in engineering. I don't have shit yet." Well, I mean, that's a given, right? But at the same time, he wasn't an engineer because he was in a shitty job market. He wasn't an engineer because he was in the middle of COVID. You know, and then eventually the market kind of subsided and he found his job, and you know, he got his. So, you know, we're not there anymore. COVID's over, bro. Like I don't think you can really use COVID as an excuse for why it is that we're not where we are at. Like I can understand it if you said it as a terms of why you got delayed in the past, but no longer, dude. No more. No more bullshit. No more excuses. I mean, you can't, like, if you can't buy it in your own heart, why are you trying to sell it to me? You know, once I started living life that way, where I stopped selling bullshit to people, and you know, bullshit that I wasn't even buying myself. Like I knew I was kind of being a fraud by saying, "Oh, you know, the economy. Oh, you know, this and that." I realized that, like, you know, I just feel like a more honest person, less crooked. But that's a whole different topic. But Tales from the Pivot, man. Tales from the Pit. Tales from the Pivot. I think about him a lot. And honestly, bro's an inspiration because, look, dude, if he can do it from where he was, we can do it from a position of comfort. That's for damn sure. Hope you enjoyed the video. Have a good one.